Daily Power Parsha, and we are in midst of an action-packed adventure here with the Torah portion. All right, so this week we are studying the Torah portion of Tisa or Tisa. Today is March 2nd, 2021, and we are going to jump in to the Torah reading. I have it up for you. You should be able to, one second. This is not the right thing. Let me share my screen with you once again. There we go. Now it's the Torah reading and not a JLI email. Torah reading for Tisa. This is chapter 31, discussion about who should build the Mishkan. Here we go. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, "See, I have called by name Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have imbued him." In other words, called by name means I'm calling him up from the bullpen. Betzalel, you're in the game. You're going to be the chief builder. And I've imbued him with, God says, with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with insight, with knowledge, and with talent for all manner of craftsmanship. That's interesting, right? That line, talent for all manner of craftsmanship, that's pretty cool. And what's going to be involved? It's to do master weaving, to work with gold, with silver, and with copper, with the craft of stones for setting, and with the craft of wood, to do every manner of work. Now, these, as I'm sure you know, these are all very specific areas of artisanship or artistry, right? So you have those that are master weavers. Then you have those that work with gold, silver, and copper, with metals. Then you have stone people, which I'm sure there's a more accurate term for stone setting people, right? You have people that set stones, jewelry makers, and you know, people that deal with stones and settings. And then you have wood crafts people, and these are typically different people. And yet here's a person, Betzalel is his name-o, who is an expert in all the above. Kind of cool. Let's continue inside. And behold, with him I have placed his trusty sidekick, Oholiab, the son of Achisamach of the tribe of Dan, and all the wise-hearted into whose hearts I have instilled wisdom, and they shall make everything I have commanded you. So God says to Moses, I'm calling up Betzalel. Betzalel is going to be the dude. Along with him will be Oholiab, and along with them will be all the wise-hearted people who have that wisdom. In other words, all of the craftspeople and artisans and artists and woodworkers and metalworkers and all that stuff. They all should be part of this endeavor, this mission, this effort to build the Mishkan. And they should make everything, which includes verse number 7, the tent of meeting, and the ark for the testimony, as well as the cover that shall be on it, all the implements of the tent, the table and all its implements, the pure menorah and all its implements, the altar of incense, the altar for the burnt offering and all its implements, the washstand and its base. So all those are the temples, the tabernacle stuff. And then you have the garments, the meshwork garments, the holy garments for Aaron, the Kohen, the garments of his sons in which to serve as Kohanim. And what about the other stuff? The anointing oil and the incense for the holy. In complete accordance with everything I've commanded you, they shall do. This is a wonderful summary. I love these few verses from verse 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses that encapsulate literally the last two Torah portions. You're making the tent of meeting with the ark and the cover and the table and the menorah and the incense altar and the outer altar for the offerings, the washstand, the garments, the anointing oil, and the incense. That's it. And now you have a Mishkan if you make all that stuff. All right, so that's what God says to Moses, and then he continues. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, verse 12, verse 13 now, and you, oh, look at this, speak to the children of Israel and say, only keep my Sabbaths. Suddenly, in the middle of this conversation, we have a commandment regarding observing Shabbat. For it is a sign between me and you for your generations to know that I, the Lord, make you holy. Therefore, as a sign of the covenant, as a sign of our relationship with God, our remembrance of God, etc. Therefore, God says, keep the Sabbath, for it is a sacred thing for you. Those who desecrate it shall be put to death. And for whoever performs work on it, that soul will be cut off from the midst of its people. All right. So what's the point? The point is Shabbat is important. Let's continue. 6 days work may be done. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, all those days you do work. But on the seventh day, it's a Sabbath of complete rest. Holy to the Lord. Whoever performs work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. All right, again, that's just bringing out the holiness and the sacredness of the day. Now, one thing that I want to point out, which is very important. Actually, let's continue. Thus shall the children of Israel observe the Sabbath to make the Sabbath throughout the generations as an everlasting covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is forever a sign that in 6 days the Lord created the heaven and the earth, and on the seventh day he ceased and rested. So observing Shabbat is a testimony, if you will, that God created the world in 7 days, or 6 days rested on the seventh, and it is our sign of connection with God. Here's the point, or here's my question. Why suddenly are we talking about Sabbath in the middle of building the Mishkan? We have the discussion about building the Mishkan. We talked about all the details. We even talked about who should be in charge of the project. And then God says, oh, Shabbat. So the commentaries point out something very simple and very understandable. What God is telling Moses to tell the people is that no matter how important, despite how important the building of the Mishkan is, don't do it on Shabbat. Right? In other words, it's a really important project. And you would think that we should work 24/7, right? We should work 6 days, 7 days a week on the project of building the tabernacle, building the Mishkan, and making the garments and all that stuff. So God says, I've just given you like the most important building project ever, but don't forget about Shabbat. Do it within the parameters of Shabbat observance, which means only work for 6 days. On the seventh, you should rest. This is also, by the way, does that make sense what I just said? In other words, even though it's really important, don't do it on Shabbat. Now, one more point, though, along those lines, is that we also learn from this that the specific types of work that are forbidden on Shabbat are the specific types of things that were done to build the Mishkan, like weaving garments and hammering metal and, this stuff that was, there are 39 categories, general categories of work that are forbidden on Shabbat, that were involved in building the Mishkan and building the tabernacle. So the fact that in the context of building the tabernacle, God says, don't work on Shabbat means that what work on Shabbat is prohibited, the specific types of labor that were done in the commission of the work of building the tabernacle. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's jump back inside to our Chumash text, the Torah text. All right, let's go now into the second reading, which was for yesterday, but it was a massive reading, so we didn't cover the whole first reading. So here we go. Second reading. Let's take a look. When God had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, Moses, right? When God finished speaking with Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, stone tablets written with the finger of God. All of that is a precursor to the next dramatic narrative, which is the sin of the golden calf. If you ever want, it's sandwiched in between God's not been built, but we are reading about the golden calf sin. Exodus chapter 32. Here we go. When the people saw that Moses was late in coming down from the mountain, they thought he was late. They thought he was a day late, or they thought he was late. The people gathered against Aaron and they said to him, come on, make us gods that will go before us, because this man Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So why is Moses late in coming down? What's going on with that? So he wasn't actually late. The people had miscalculated. Let me explain. Moses told the people, I'm going to be up in the mountain for 40 days. 40 days. He went up in the morning. He said before he went up, all right, folks, I'll be back in 40 days. They counted that morning as day 1. And the next day, day 2, day 3, day 4, when day 40 came and passed, they said he's not coming back. and they ganged up on Aaron and said, Aaron, you got to do something about this. Moses is gone. We're left without a leader. We got to create a symbol or something, some sort of, remember, these were people that were steeped in Egyptian culture for hundreds of years because they were just slaves. This is like a few months removed from slavery. And so they reverted back to maybe old patterns, if you will, or old comforts of trying to create symbols in a religion, Judaism, that is anti-divine symbols. There's other symbols in Judaism, but anti-icons, iconography, or whatever, icons or symbols for God. They wanted to create a symbol for God because Moses had gone and they were panicked. Now, why did Moses come back late? Well, they made a mistake. They counted that first morning that he went up as day one, but it wasn't day one because, as you know, the Jewish day begins at night, which means that this is day zero because it wasn't a full day. A full day, a day one is constituted as a full 24 hours on the mountain, which that first half day was not a full day. So day one only began with that night and into the next day. Does that make sense what I just said? Yes? So the morning that Moses went up was not day one, it was day zero, or minus half a day. And then day one began that night. So they were off by a day. They thought he was delayed, or they thought he wasn't coming back. They panicked. They ganged up on Aaron, and let's see what happens next. The drama continues. Aaron said to them, remove the golden earrings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them those earrings to me. Now, Aaron said that because he knew that there was no way that the wives would bring their earrings or give their earrings for this make us gods. The request was make us gods, make us an idol. So Aaron knew that the wives would not be ever involved in idolatry, and they weren't, and that the men would not be able to come up with the gold. So he thought he was attempting to delay them, to basically push them off without inciting a mob against him, that he would give them some busy work to do. By the time they got the gold, Moses would be back, crisis averted. Well, he wasn't banking on the fact that the people found their own gold and they just didn't ask their wives. So verse 3, and all the people stripped themselves of the golden earrings that were on their ears and brought them to Aaron. Basically, the men, I don't know if it seems like the men had their own earrings, whatever it is, that the men came up with their own gold without needing the gold from the Jewish women. So Aaron took the gold earrings from their hands, fashioned it with an engraving tool, and he made it into a molten calf. Now, it may sound like he literally made the golden calf, but according to the tradition, he threw it into fire and out came a calf. Either way, upon which they said, the people said, these are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt. It's a shocking statement because literally the golden calf wasn't there a moment ago. And now that the golden calf is here, what's the proclamation? These are your gods who have brought you up from the land of Egypt. How could these gods have brought them up from the land of Egypt if they literally were not around 5 minutes ago, right? The Exodus happened months ago. And now they're saying, oh, this golden calf is your God who has brought you up from the land of Egypt. It's bizarre and shocking. Obviously, they don't mean the actual golden calf is the God, but it's a symbol. They needed a symbol, which means that they really misunderstood who Moses was. They were viewing Moses as a symbol, and when Moses is gone, they had to create their own symbol. Whereas Moses is not meant to be a symbol of God, but rather meant to be a matchmaker, if you will, not a symbol that gets in the way. All right, let's continue. When Aaron saw this golden calf, he built an altar in front of it. And Aaron proclaimed and said, tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord. Again, you could read this entire narrative as Moses being really complicit, really on the hook for this whole thing. But the way the commentaries understand it to be nice, if you will, or in a nice way to Aaron, is that he was pushing them off, and it all kind of happened by this huge accident, so to speak. Like he was trying to push them off by asking for the jewelry. Then he just threw it into the fire, and out came the calf. And then he said, tomorrow will be a festival to the Lord. In other words, again, to push them off for the next day, by which time Moses would surely be back and the mistake will have been realized. Well, again, it just seems that instead of Aaron saying, no, you're wrong, this is crazy, which would perhaps incite a violent mob, So he was trying to like do it in a nice way to kind of push them off. And by that time, hopefully, things would be resolved on their own, but it didn't work out like that, because on the next day, verse 6, the people arose early. He wasn't banking on that. They got up really early in the morning before Moses came back down. They offered up burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink, and they got up to make merry. Now that got up to make merry, according to the commentaries, means that they were up to funny business. They were up to no good. Promiscuity and violence and all sorts of negativity, so came along with the golden calf. So the golden calf was not just idol worship, but it also came along with all sorts of other untoward or unbecoming behavior. Now, in the meantime, Moses is still up on the mountain. So at this point, God gives the old, whatever it is, the old to Moses, and says, hey, you might want to check on your folks. Your people on earth, they've gone completely off the rails. So the Lord said to Moses, go descend, which by the way means two things. Number one, down the mountain, but also go descend, because you're as a leader, you take a hit if they take a hit. But go descend, for your people that you have brought up from the land of Egypt, they have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned away from the path that I've commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf, and they have prostrated themselves before it, slaughtered sacrifice to it, and said, these are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt. So God says to Moses on the mountain, I think you need to go down because this is out of control. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, they are a stiff-necked people. They are stubborn, they are obstinate, old habits die hard. Look at this, they're serving idols. They're going back to Egyptian ways. Now God says to Moses, leave me alone. Look at that language. Leave me alone, and my anger will be kindled against them, so that I will annihilate them, and I will make you into a great nation. So God essentially says, I'm done with them. Moses, I still love you, so I'm going to rebuild you into the Jewish people. Your descendants or your family, whatever, you will become the core of the Jewish people, but I'm going to get rid of everybody else. Verse 11, one of the more dramatic moments in the entire Torah. Moses pleaded before the Lord his God and said, why, O Lord, should your anger be kindled against your people whom you have brought up from the land of Egypt with great power and with a strong hand? In other words, God, why are you so angry? Don't you remember these are the people that you rescued from Egypt? And again, he's trying to evoke compassion, evoking Egypt, the idea that, again, they were scared, they were alone, they felt vulnerable. So yeah, they did something not right, but they're reverting back to their Egyptian ways, but have compassion, have rahmanas on them. Basically, from verse 11 on, Moses is going to bat for the Jewish people. And you have to understand, Moses is going back to defend the Jewish people even before he's been on the ground. He's still up on the mountain. You with me on this? I'm going to unmute. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see everybody. Moses has not yet gone down the mountain to see for himself what the people have done or haven't done. He hasn't seen the guilt for himself, and yet he's already advocating for their forgiveness. That's how Moses is, right? Moses is someone who doesn't presume guilt. He presumes innocence. When somebody does something or says something, you could understand it either in a good way or maybe in a bad way. And so often we choose to see it in a negative way. It's like, oh, I bet they meant this, that, or the other. I can't believe they said or did that. Moses, when faced with the guilt of the Jewish people, says to God, no. Here's how you need to look at it. These are people that you just saved from Egypt, but they came from Egypt, a very difficult place. All right, let's get back inside as his pleas continue. Why? Look at the next psychological attempt. Why should the Egyptians say he brought them out with evil intent to kill them in the mountains and to annihilate them upon the face of the earth? In other words, if you destroy the Jewish people, the Egyptians are going to say, God wasn't saving the Jewish people. God hated them more than we did, because we at least were keeping them alive. God saved them only to execute them in the desert, which means that God, we thought we hated the Jewish people and oppressed them. God really had it in for them. So Moses says, why should the Egyptians ever have that thought? No. Retreat from the heat of your anger. Look at this. Chutzpah. Moses says to God, retreat, it even rhymes, retreat from the heat of your anger and reconsider the evil intended for your people. Another tactic. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, Jacob, your servants. If all else fails, remember the patriarchs. They didn't do this. To whom you swore by your very self, and to whom you said, I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens. And all this land which I said that I would give to your seed, they shall keep it as their possession forever. Don't you remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And don't you remember the promise that you made to them about their children, their seed, and about their inheritance of the land of Israel? So how could you deny them, deny yourself of this opportunity? How could you give Egypt the ability to ever say, oh, we weren't so bad, God's even worse? How could you disregard the fact that they just came out of Egypt not that long ago, a place steeped in idolatry, where they were slaves for 210 years, right? How can you overlook all these points? Rather forgive your people. Verse 14, it works. It works. The Lord then reconsidered the evil he had said he would do to his people. God says, okay, I'll reconsider. Moses says, awesome. Now I can go down. Now I can check and see what's going on. After he secured God's promise of reconsidering, all right, now he can go and see what exactly they did. Now Moses turned and went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand. Tablets inscribed from both their sides. It was a miracle. But whatever side you looked at it, it was inscribed accurately. On one side and on the other side, they were inscribed. Now the tablets were God's work, and the inscription was God's inscription engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard, now Joshua also was a little bit up the mountain away from the camp. He wasn't sure what was going on. When Joshua heard the voice of the people and their shouting, he said to Moses, who was just coming down the mountain, there is a voice of battle in the camp. It sounds like there's a fight going on. But Moses said to Joshua, it is neither a voice shouting victory nor a voice shouting defeat. This is not a battle. A voice of blasphemy I hear. I mean, wow, talk about a dramatic line right there, right? It's neither victory nor defeat. It's a voice of blasphemy. I don't know why I'm speaking with a weird, fake, semi-British accent. Anyway, let's continue verse 19. Now it came to pass when he drew closer to the camp, Moses, right, that and saw the calf and the dances, that Moses' anger was kindled. And he flung the tablets from his hand, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. Listen to this. The same Moses that defended the Jewish people is now angry and breaking the tablets. Why? Because that's a balanced approach. To God, he's going to defend the Jewish people. But when he's confronted with the issue, he says, what were you guys thinking? Right? He's not pretending it's okay. But in speaking to God, there's a different agenda, which is forgiveness. Speaking to the people, it's to chastise them and correct them. Then he took the calf they had made, burned it in fire, so he got rid of the calf, ground it into a fine powder, scattered it upon the surface of the water, and gave it to the children of Israel to drink. Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you brought such a grave sin upon them? So now Moses is calling out his brother. It's like, I put you in charge. What happened? How could this have happened? Aaron replied, let not my Lord's anger grow hot. You know this people. You know the people, that they are disposed toward evil. That, all right, he's throwing them under the bus a little bit. Okay. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us, because this man Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. I said to them, who has gold? So they took the gold off and gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. Oh, that's where I got that before, right? At least in Aaron's words, he just threw it into the fire, and out came the calf. And he didn't even say like, definitely bring me the gold. He just said kind of who has the gold, which according to Kabbalah means who has gold was meant to evoke the people. It was about to whom does the gold belong, which should remind them that it belongs to God, because God, everything belongs to God. And then they should be reminded to only use resources for a holy purpose and not a nefarious purpose. But they didn't get the hint, threw it into the fire, out came the calf, and it turned into this disaster. So this is Aaron defending himself to Moses. When Moses says to Aaron, what happened? This is Aaron's reply. Verse 25, Moses saw the people that they were exposed, for Aaron had exposed them to be disgraced before their adversaries. In other words, Moses saw that this incident, however it came about, exposed some, not everybody, but some, as being bent on idolatry and really stuck in their own ways. Now, you should know everybody was sort of involved, but there were certain individuals that were directly involved in the plan and creation and worship of the golden calf, right? Like in everything in life, right? There were the main leaders, and then what's the word I'm looking for? The extras, right? The extras in the scene that were involved, watching, some are participating, but not directly involved. So that's important to understand the next piece of the narrative. So Moses stood at the gate of the camp and he said, whoever is for the Lord, let him come to me, right? Mi Lashem Elai. Whoever is for God, come to me. That's it. Choose a side. Either you're into the idol or you're into God. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. So the family of Levi, the tribe of Levi, gathered around Moses. He said to them, so said the Lord, the God of Israel, let every man place his sword upon his thigh and pass back and forth from one gate to the other in the camp, and let every man kill his brother, every man his friend, every man his kinsman. The sons of Levi, I'm going to explain that in a moment. The sons of Levi did according to Moses' word. On that day, some 3,000 men fell from among the people. What that means is Moses said, essentially, the direct leaders of the golden calf, that is punishable by death, execution, because it is a capital crime in Judaism. Idolatry, worshiping an idol on this level was a capital crime. And he says, therefore, mete out this punishment, but it was only for the direct individual involved. So hopefully we're getting a bit of a nuanced perspective on Moses. It's not like Moses pretended like everything was okay. He goes to God and says, God, you have to have a path for forgiveness. He goes to the people and he says, how could you do it? He goes to Aaron and says, how could you do it? And then he says, for those directly involved, there will be a price to pay. But overall, a nation of 2 million people, not minimizing 3,000, God forbid, one life is a whole world, but the way it was understood is they were deserving of a capital punishment, and that is what happened on that day. And Moses said, initiate yourself today for the Lord, for each man with his son and with his brother, so that he may bestow a blessing upon you this day. So basically, the idea is that after those directly involved, the ones that had the golden blood, so to speak, on their hands, after they were executed, so then he said the blessings can flow now. It came to pass on the next day, that Moses said to the people, you've committed a grave sin. And it was everybody, by in any way being involved. And now, even if not directly, and now I will go up to the Lord, perhaps I will obtain atonement from your sin. Remember, God had just said that I'm not going to go forward with the plan of killing everybody and starting again from you, Moses. God says, I'll reconsider, but we need more than reconsidering punishment. We need atonement and forgiveness. So that's why Moses goes up the mountain for the next 40 days. And Moses, one thing to point out, there's just a lot of stuff to think about, but one thing to point out is that when Moses makes the proclamation, who is for the Lord, come to me. So the Torah says all the sons of Levi gathered around him. This is why the Levites became the ones to minister in the temple and tabernacle. The Kohen and the Levi were both from the tribe of Levi. It's because they were the ones that the women and the Levites did not partake in the tribe of Levi did not partake in the worship of the golden calf.
Rabbi?
Okay.
So is this where we see the beginning of the dispersion of all the other tribes that kind of?
No, they don't leave yet. That happens much later, about 1,000 years later in history. But we do see why the tribe of Levi becomes now elevated above the other tribes, so to speak, right? And it's this almost self-selection where they chose not to at all participate. In the golden calf, they chose to hang out with Moses when Moses says, "Whoever's for God, come with me." Others came as well, but the whole tribe of Levi came, and so that's why the Levites are
Rabbi,
yeah, Ray, go ahead.
I don't understand how the people got killed, the ones that participated in the, what happened there?
It says, "Let every man put his sword upon his
The
thigh."
people killed each other?
Yeah, they by order of the Chief Justice Moses, there was capital punishment being meted out for those that were directly organizing and heading up this golden calf situation. That's what it seems.
Why did I think that the ground opened up and swallowed them? Is that another time something happens like that?
Yeah, that's later on with Korach. That's later on with Korach, who tries to overthrow Moses' leadership. But this was in the direct aftermath of the golden calf. Again, it's the same Moses who says to God, "You got to forgive your people." The same Moses also says the ones directly culpable have to pay a price. Again, this is not a lesson, for how to mete out justice, in modern times. That's not what we're learning. That's not how it's learned, and it's not how the sages historically have understood this. This is a reflection and account of what happened then. It speaks to the severity of idolatry, and it speaks to the necessity to take swift action as felt by Moses, and it also speaks to the advocacy of Moses on behalf of the Jewish people. So let's now talk about that advocacy, because Moses goes back up on the mountain. Okay, verse 31. And Moses returned to the Lord. So this is his second trip on the mountain. And he said, "Please, the people have committed a grave sin. They have made themselves a god of gold." Okay, that's the fact. However, and now, if you forgive their sin, ... good. But if not, erase me now from your book which you have written. This is where Moses, and you may be familiar with this, I mentioned this in many classes before, Moses throws down the gauntlet, or whatever it's called, or sets forth an ultimatum. He says to God, if you forgive the people, who the remainder, the vast majority of the people who are still alive, so great. If not, take me out of your Torah. I don't want to have any part of this book. And the Lord said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, him I will erase from my book." And now, says God, "Go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you." In other words, lead them to Israel. "Behold, my angel will go before you. But on the day I make accounting of sins upon them, I'll bring their sin to account against them." So God says a few things. Okay, fine. I've forgiven them, but they may be forgiven, but it's not forgotten. And I'm sending my angel. I'm not going to go directly with them anymore. I'm going to send my angel to go with you. And when other sins happen, I will bring their sin to account against them. In other words, when other stuff happens, I'm telling you now, I'm going to recall this one as well. In other words, it's like, okay, you're forgiven, but I reserve the right to pull this up when needed. Then the Lord struck the people with a plague because they had made the calf that Aaron had made. Let's continue. The Lord spoke to Moses. And in the Torah itself, we don't have details about that plague, but it seems like there was another round of consequence. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Go ascend from here." In other words, he was on top of the mountain, but it's leave this geographical space, you and the people you brought up from the land of Egypt, and go up to the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, i.e. the land of Israel, saying, I will give it to your descendants. That was my promise. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. And I will lead them and lead them to a land flowing with milk and honey, because I will not go up in your midst. So God says, I'm going to send an angel before you, the angel. Why? Because I will not go up in your midst. Right? I'll send my rep, but I'm not going up myself. I'm not going with you myself. Why? Since you are a stiff-necked people, lest I destroy you on the way. In other words, I don't trust myself. I don't trust you. Right? You're liable to do something, and it's not end well. So let an angel rather go with you, and I'm not going to get involved. Now, when the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his finery. So what's the bad news? The bad news that God was saying, essentially, you're on your own. I'll give you a tour guide, an angel, but otherwise, that's it. You're on your own. So this was mourning. This was a very sad day. And the Lord said to Moses, say to the children of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. I think this is the third time that it's used that expression so far today. If I go up into your midst for one moment, I will destroy you. But now leave off your finery, and I will know what to do with you, what to do to you. So, don't put on your finery. Don't put on the nice clothes or whatever it is, or jewelry, for that matter. And it's basically a rebuke and a chastisement. God says, I'm no longer going with you. You're stiff-necked people, and don't dress up. So the children of Israel divested themselves of the finery from Mount Horeb. At Mount Horeb is another word for Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, it says that everyone present received 2 crowns, like literal crowns. They got like jewelry. They got bling. And, that's another idea, crowns. Got to make some crowns. So at this point, Oh, okay, we'll do this. So at this point, no, one second. So at this point, regards from Riva. So at this point, the people took off the crowns, the finery. Finery means the crowns in this case. All right. And so they realized that they'd messed up. They realized they'd messed up, and God was now no longer so happy with them. And Moses, for his part, took his tent, and pitched it for himself outside the camp. Moses also said, you know what? I'm also not happy with y'all. I'm going to be sleeping outside tonight, distancing it from the camp. And he called it the tent of meeting. Now, this is not the same. Okay. It's the other tent of meeting. Remember the tent of meeting was that building in the tabernacle, but this is his own tent of meeting. There were 2 tent of meetings, basically, one uppercase and one lowercase. So the uppercase tent of meeting was God's space. This was Moses' space, where he would meet with people that needed guidance or advice. And it would be that one second. And it would be that anyone seeking the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. So they would go to Moses' personal tent of meeting outside the camp to consult, and that's what would happen. But the point is that Moses was so, what's the word I'm looking for? Unhappy. There you go. Unhappy with the people. Not only did God say, I'm out, take an angel, but Moses says, I'm out. Take a number and meet me outside of my tent, in tent of meeting. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been making some notes for my Rashi
Sure.
here. I might be a little bit behind where you are.
No
but
worries.
I know that you've said before, that the reason Moses broke the tablets was because it was a death sentence.
Right.
And if he hadn't, everyone would have been killed by God. But
Right.
It says in here, Hashem said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I shall erase him from my book. And that, and he smote the people, and later on he smote the people with a plague because they had made the calf that Aaron had made. And it doesn't say just the ones who sacrifices. He may, maybe it was is what it was. But my question is you can't have it both ways. Either he broke the tablets and that stopped any consequence, or there was a consequence
Right.
in spite of the fact the tablets were broken.
So, Mark, I'm trying to have it both ways. Let a guy have it both ways for a second. In other words, I 100% understand your question. So that's why my understanding, and maybe there's another way to understand it, but you're asking the $1 million question. Mark's question is, 1 second, was Moses advocating for forgiveness or for consequences? Which one? It seems like there was forgiveness, but also consequences. The way I worked around that apparent paradox or contradiction is to say that there were two groups. There were the hands-on orchestrators, planners, and producers of the golden calf. And then there were the ones that got swept up in it. So the ones that were directly hands-on, there were consequences. But even those consequences didn't mean that their souls were doomed, but it means that through the consequences, which in this case was capital punishment, they would achieve atonement, and there would be some, reconciliation for their souls, even absent from a body, but at least they should have some reconciliation of soul. Whereas the ones that even in body Moses achieved forgiveness for were all of the other people. So that's the way I'm understanding it. In other words, 3,000 people had to meet a certain fate, but the rest that otherwise God said, I'm going to destroy the entire nation, the rest, which is the vast majority, at least 597,000 people, Moses did save through his advocacy. So you're right. The advocacy only went so far, but we shouldn't minimize the power of that advocacy and the benefit of it and the effect of it, because it was really beneficial for the majority of the people. I don't know if that's the best answer, but that's the way I understand it.
Rabbi,
okay.
there's a similarity in our justice system. Like if you look at the drug laws, certain drugs might be 100% illegal to use, but possession for own use is minimal consequences, but those that sell have high consequences. So that was similar to what you're saying, like the instigators versus.
And also, and also thank you for mentioning that, because it also got me thinking about even, God forbid, a murder case, right? Where you have the person who actually committed the crime, God forbid, and then you have the person who maybe, drove the getaway car or covered up for them after the fact or before the fact or whatever, or destroyed it. So there's, again, I'm not trying to minimize it and to, make everything sound great and fun. It's not. It's all accessories. It's all part. It was all. Everyone on some level was a party or an accessory to this, to the sin, which is why God initially said, "I'm going to get rid of the whole nation and start again with you." Moses says, "No, reconsider, forgive them, etc." But at the end of the day, there were people who, so to speak, pulled the trigger, and those people, their consequences. But again, I mentioned this parenthetically before. In the Jewish understanding of justice, when a person was given a capital punishment, it was considered to be an atonement for the soul, a kapara, like Kippur, Yom Kippur, a kapara, an atonement. And that itself is something. So instead of it just being, execution or taking a life, it's actually a form of kapara. The idea is that the soul's mission, the body has gone to such a place, negative place, where the soul can no longer effectively perform its mission in that body. So the soul is granted a release from the body, and now it can, continue on its journey and figure it out from there. But it's considered to be an atonement and a benefit for the soul, as opposed to, a punishment. So we don't focus on the body as much as the soul in this situation. So it even helped for those as well, that this should be an atoning process as opposed to just simply a punishment. All right, let's continue with Moses. So Moses goes out, he, relocates his tent. He's not happy. He's relocating his tent. And here we go. And it would be verse 8, that when Moses would go out to the tent, because remember, Moses still had to go inside the camp to the tabernacle, right? When that was built, it wasn't built. Yeah, but when Moses would go out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand, each one at the entrance of his tent, and they would gaze after Moses until he went to his tent. So here we have the idea that, when somebody honored comes in or out of a room, we stand up in respect. This is where it comes from. They would stand up as Moses was going back to his tent. They would stand up as a sign of respect. And it would be that when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and he would speak, and God would speak with Moses. When all the people would see the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and prostrate themselves, each one at the entrance of his tent. So Moses was an eye shot, was an eye view, so to speak, of the people. He was outside the camp. When people saw the cloud and all that stuff, they knew that Moses was speaking to God. They would all respond by bowing down by their own spaces inside the camp. Then, at that signal, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as a man would speak to his companion, and he would return to the camp. But his attendant, he would return to the camp. That would mean he came to the camp to relay the message to the people. In other words, Moses had these communications with God face to face outside the camp, and then he would return to the camp to convey the message. But his attendant Joshua, the son of Nun, a lad, would not depart from the tent. Joshua always stuck with Moses outside the camp by the tent. Joshua didn't move. That's why Joshua becomes, spoiler alert, the next Jewish leader. He's a guy who's by Moses' side all the way from day one. Okay, so that is that's actually yesterday's reading, but that's plenty to digest. There's a lot in there. I think I want to just share what do I want to share that's positive? I guess I'm just going to echo what Mark said, because that's probably the most positive thing that I can say. Moses broke the tablets according to one understanding, and Rashi cites it as well, to destroy the evidence of the sin, or not the evidence of the sin, because the golden calf was still there, but to destroy the document that contained the law that said, don't do what was just done, right? The written form, there was no Torah yet, written Torah. There was just the tablets of the Ten Commandments. That's what Moses had in his hands. So he destroys them to destroy basically any record of don't serve idols, of that commandment, don't serve idols. And in doing so, on some level, once again, he defends and spares at least most of the Jewish people, if not, not everybody, but the vast, vast, vast majority of the Jewish people that otherwise might have met a different fate. And so what we see here is the incredible extent to which Moses is a leader defending his people. He defends sight unseen. He defends to God. How often are we presented with disparaging news about someone else, and we jump on it, and we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I could totally see that happening. Or we take it, for granted. Moses goes the other way. Moses hears bad news, negative news from God. It wasn't some sort of like tabloid, magazine or whatever. This is from God. You imagine it's a pretty good source, right? This is not fake news. This is legit, right? And God says to Moses, this is what's happening. And Moses says to God, I hear you. You still have to forgive them, most of them, right? Or grant the punishment ones. Yeah. Ray, go ahead.
What bothers me is this capital punishment thing. And then you said they ground up the idol and people had to drink it. Well, what happened to the people that drank it? Did they die?
I think that those that that it was unclear to what extent they were involved, if they were involved, but there were no witnesses, right? So, because you can only punish capital punishment if there are witnesses. If there were no witnesses, but somebody was involved, the drinking of said ground up residue of golden calf would miraculously or magically harm them or end their life as well. So that would mete out the punishment by divine hand. I'm with you. I think in the year 2021, we're all about love and peace and kindness and forgiveness. And who wants to talk about capital punishment? You read the Torah and you get a bit of a different story. And that's, what can I say? It is what it is. The Torah does provide for capital punishment in certain cases, including idolatry. There's a very high bar for that to happen. That bar was met in these situations. I understand that it's against our sensibilities, but there's nothing that I can say, right, to change the story or the fact. This is literally the story that the Torah is telling us. This is what happened. It highlights the severity of idolatry, the extent to which Judaism is monotheistic, and the spiritual value of these and physical value of these Jewish values.
Are we still the chosen people, the remaining, those that survived?
Oh, 1 second. Good question. So it seems like God is just giving up on the Jewish people, right? At this point, he's like, you're on your own. But the story's not done yet. So in the next few readings, there's a dialogue between, again, Moses doesn't stop. He's a dialogue saying, we don't want an angel. No angels. We want you, right? And don't just be like, so Moses continues to advocate. This is our teaser for the next few days, where Moses goes back and forth with God on this to basically ensure that God's, okay, fine, I'll lead you again, to get back to that place of that tight relationship, if you will. But yeah, that was in peril right over here. And you see where it's going, right? It's going where God's like, all right, I'm not gonna destroy you, but that's it. Like, do whatever you want, right? Whatever. Don't bother me. Which sounds like it's done. Relationship is done, right?
But also,
yeah.
Also, maybe the 3,000 people Moses was helping would appease God, like with Lot. Like if there are 10 people, if there are this many people,
right?
Don't kill everybody.
Right. I hear that. But it's just that makes me a little uncomfortable saying sacrifice some for the benefit of the many. But I understand what you're saying. I think it's more of like these 3,000 were directly involved.
The most guilty.
And everybody else got swept in. I mean, look, we can imagine scenarios where, it wasn't your idea, but when it's going on, it looked fun, right? I got swept up in the moment. So Moses says, look, but what's also interesting here is, and I think it's very telling and important for us all, is that forgiveness comes in stages, right? So it's not like you go over to the person and like, okay, forgive me all the way. Like pretend that never happened. Like, first of all, I don't want you to wish me to want to destroy me. That's like the first is like, don't try to destroy me. And then it's a slow process of getting back in someone's good graces. And that we see Moses really does a valiant effort with that. But the Moses that speaks to the people is different than the Moses that speaks to God. Speaks to God. When Moses speaks to God about the people are the best thing in the world. When he speaks to the people, he says, what are you doing? Right? So like there's a little bit of a different energy, which makes sense, right? He defends to God, but in his own house, in his own space, he says he takes him to task. All right, that's it for today. So what's the moral of the story? Moral of the story is we should defend the other. The moral of the story is not about the 3,000. That we're looking at the exception, not the rule. The rule is the 597,000 plus, right? Or the rest of the 2 million people is about advocating for and going to bat for and standing up for and defending. May we all defend each other. May we never jump to conclusions for the negative. On the contrary, we should always jump to the positive and judge each other favorably. All right, thank you for joining. It's late. I'm gonna let everybody go. Have a wonderful day. Tonight, JLI. Tomorrow night, Torah studies. The next day, JLI. Tanya, we got a full package this week. And also really important, in a little under 2 weeks, we are welcoming Holocaust survivor Marion Blumenthal Lazan, David Lazan's mom. She has an incredible story. She has an incredible book. Join us. You will be blown away by this story. Just a gripping tale of her survival drama. I mean, in the way that I think David put it to me once, his mother's story is like Anne Frank's story, but had she survived. Similar concentration camps that she went to Bergen-Belsen also. Of course, Anne Frank didn't survive the war. David's mom did. And she's going to tell her story of just incredible faith and strength and fortitude and the love that she's been able to find after the war. So join us. If you haven't yet signed up, I know many of you are already signed up. If you haven't yet signed up, join us. It's going to be Sunday, March 14th. And also please help spread the word, because I feel very passionate, and I believe it's very important that there's an opportunity for all of us to hear firsthand accounts. And even if we have heard other firsthand accounts, as many as possible, as many stories, to make sure that we have their memory live on within us. Very important that we keep on the living memories within us. So please help spread the word. It's on Zoom. She'll be in New York. So it's really for anybody local and global. All right. Thanks for joining. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yashkoach.
Rabbi.
Pleasure.